This is a short sequence that's going to work on activation of our deeper core. So fairly low level, but working on endurance, working on activation, trying to get these muscles to fire up before you progress your core to a higher level. So I've got some wrist weights or hand weights. You don't necessarily need them, you could start without and build up. And I've also got a half deflated soft Pilates ball. Again, don't necessarily need it, can build up. Cool, let's get started. So we're going to start lying down on your back. And we're going to just put this ball, if you're using it, you don't have to, right underneath the base of your spine, and then just mount yourself into it so you can still find neutral. So the ball isn't rocking you into too much flexion or too much extension. We're like able to hold this solid position. So before we think about going, I want you to visualize your core. So you've got your diaphragm at the top, you've got your pelvic floor at the bottom, and then you've got this cylinder of muscles that runs around the middle, all quite deep, okay? So I want you to try and visualize that as we're going, like this cylinder system as we're going through the class, okay? So I want you to think about using your core as you breathe out. So with our diaphragm at the top, we want to try and engage as you're going through that out breath. So before we do anything else, you're going to put your hands on the bony bits of your hips, and then just move in a little bit and down a little bit. Take a breath in to prepare, and as you breathe out, try to imagine those corset muscles just drawing together. Breathe in, release, let it go. Breathe out, corset muscles engage. You can also think about this from your pelvic floor. The two are very interconnected. Perhaps thinking about it as a hammock lifting up or an elevator coming up through the center. Still with your out breath, lift, in breath, release, let it go. Try putting one of your hands just underneath your rib cage. As you're going into that activation, what you don't want to feel is your ribs tightening, muscles gripping up here. That's a really common compensation pattern we see. We want to keep our rib cage relaxed, so that's just going to focus on breathing in, breathing out. Your rib cage will move, okay, whilst you're able to isolate your core, lower down. All right, so spend a bit of time practicing that first, because that's quite important to get before we go through this sequence. So we start with hip twist. So hands reaching up towards the ceiling. As you breathe in, take your left knee out to the side, take your right arm out. As you breathe out, pull the leg, pull the arm back in. So we're just going to alternate from one side of the body to the other here. Now your focus is going to be on maintaining a really steady position, either on that ball, which is going to make it a little bit wobbly, so a bit more of a challenge, or on the mat, okay? So the bony bits of your hips as you're going through this outward, inward sequence should remain fairly level. So if I was to put a spirit level across the lower tummy, that bubble would remain right in the center. So we breathe out to pull the arm and the leg back in, and we're just going to start to visualize our core working with that now. So as we're bringing everything to the midline, we think activate tummy, activate pelvic floor. Breathe in, release as you go up to the side. Breathe out, zip up that core, lift that elevator, however we're thinking about it. So different cues work for different people. So I find the elevator cue quite helpful for me, that lifting up of pelvic floor. But other people might find pelvis is like a book closing, a nice cue, or magnets drawing your lower tummy together, waistband drawing in. But remember to keep it subtle. Okay, so we're thinking 4 out of 10 on an effort scale max. Right, we take this over now. We take the ball out, come and lie on your side. Stretch your lower arm out, put the ball between your knees. Check that you're in neutral here, feet roughly in line with your bum. Breathe in, float the arm to the ceiling. Breathe out, pull down, squeeze the ball, start to connect a little bit more into your core. Breathe in, release the ball, squeeze, lift the arm back up. Squeeze, breath out and engage, release, breath in and reach. Okay, so we want this real downward pull of the shoulders. So as I'm pulling my arm down to my waist, I think shoulder blade slides down towards my back pocket. And we get this really nice activation through inner thighs and your deep tummy as you pull that arm down. So options to stay with this downward movement and upward movement, or if you'd like to challenge it,
we start to go forward. So we go breath in, and then as we breathe out, we pull the arm back. That's when I want you to think about connecting into your core. Breathe in, let the ribcage move and expand. Breathe out, lift your tummy, lift your pelvic floor, engage. In breath and out breath. Okay, or if that feels too much, just going forwards and back, break it up with one or the other. So we go breath in, breath out, breath in, breath out. You don't have to have the weight on here. The weight's just going to challenge that movement. Arm by itself, sometimes enough. Okay, one more of each. Last one. We're going to work our way over to the other side with that. So coming onto your back, just place the ball to the side. Arms up, float your left leg to tabletop. We challenge our hip twist sequence. So we start left arm, right knee. Breathe out to centre. And then we're going to move this leg that's in tabletop. That's the challenge. So much harder when we're in what we call this open chain position. So this foot isn't in contact with the ground, so it's a little bit more wobbly and requires more support from your core to move that leg out and in with control. So go back to that idea of a spirit level across your lower tummy here, across the tip of the hip bones, so they stay nice and steady as you float through that sequence. So in breath, we go to the side. Out breath, we're going to zip up that core, pull everything back to the midline. Let it go, breath in. Engage, breath out. Nice work. Breathe freely. So our breathing should never feel like it's forced. Yeah, we're just letting the air flow quite freely in and out. When we get that forceful breathing, we tend to go into more of a bracing pattern. And that bracing pattern will make it quite tricky to isolate those deep tummy muscles. Okay, so we float that left leg down, we float the right leg up. Just check in with your form. So we should just about be able to slide our fingertips under the lower back. Rib cage is soft and melting down, so we're not bracing into it. We're not arching the other way. Okay, so same sequence. Oh, she says, get your brain in gear. There we go. Breath in, breath out. So you're just challenging that stability now a little bit more on the right leg. Breathe in, open. Breathe out. Let's find that lift of pelvic floor. Breath into the side, or we think core, sit muscle engages. Yeah, we think waistband draws together. Breath in, breath out. But we're holding this really nice steady base underneath. So on the mat beneath, my shape of my spine, the pressure on the mat doesn't change. Okay, we'll do a few more on this side. And then we'll go on to the other side for that squeezing ball arm sequence. Last couple. Last one. So we take the ball, you're going to lie on your other side. I will just flip it so I can see you. Put the ball between your knees. And we find that same long line underneath. Try and keep your lower waist just slightly lifted to prevent your waist from bunching up. Okay, so this top waist wants to stay nice and long. Same thing, breath out, squeeze the ball, start to engage your core as you pull your arm down. Breath in, release the ball, float the arm back up. So we zip up that tummy, zip up that pelvic floor, lower down the arm, and then lift, breathe in, release. So we get that nice coordinated activation. Shoulder, inner thigh, right into those deep tummy stabilizers. And just like we did on the other side, if you want to challenge that movement, you can start to float the arm forwards instead. So you go breath in, breath out. Squeezing still on that ball. Make sure you do get some release so we don't just stay activated the whole time. On your in-breath, we let it go. Okay, breath in, release. Breath out, squeeze and pull. Or like before, we can do one of each. If it starts to get fatiguing on your shoulder, breath out, pull down. So each pull of the arm, think that's when you want to engage that little bit deeper through your stabilizing muscles, through your tummy, through your pelvic floor, but never going into that bracing where you feel you're gripping with your bigger muscles Allow your ribcage to breathe and move. Okay, last one. So we come back onto our backs. And then if you've got this ball, I'm going to get you to put it back underneath. If you haven't, no problem. In fact, no, I'm not. I'm going to put it between your knees to start with. And you could always use a pillow for this. So we go back to finding neutral. So sliding fingertips onto lower back, nice soft ribs, arms to ceiling. We're going to go ball squeeze. And as you breathe out, we're going to float the arms overhead. Don't let your rib cage lift off the mat here. So we're holding it nice and soft, the mat. And then breathe in, hands return to shoulder height. And we let that ball squeeze go a bit as well. Squeeze the ball, breathe out, overhead arms. Breathe in, release. Now what's nice about this movement, we're lifting the arms up as you're breathing out. So it kind of follows what I want your pelvic floor to do. I want you to feel like you lift your pelvic floor. Everything lifts together, everything relaxes and lowers together. Yeah, breathe out. Breathe in. Or again, if you're thinking of it, your brain works better with that sort of drawing in motion. Think corset muscles, we activate, drawstring muscles activate, arms overhead, breathe in, let it go. So it's not that you have to touch the mat overhead with your arms, it's can you keep the same shape of your back, same shape of your trunk as those arms go overhead, so we don't end up extending or arching, flaring those ribs forwards. We keep that control. Breathe out, breathe in, squeeze, breath out. Okay, then we start to challenge this. You don't necessarily need the ball, but as I said, you've got it, pop it underneath, back onto the very base of your spine, so you can wiggle and still find your neutral spine position. Arms go up. We're going to build this sequence just with your legs first of all. Breath out, single leg stretch. Breath in, back to the mat. So on the ball, it can feel quite wobbly. Okay, so if you're on the mat, not too bad. But if you just need a little bit of fingertip support on the ball, on the floor to begin with, that's okay. But if you can, let's challenge it, arms remain up. Breathe out, point your toes, stretch the leg away, just hovering it above the mat. Breathe in, foot comes back to the ground. So we get this really solid base again, yeah? So this is staying nice and stable, we're not rocking and rolling. And that length and reach away, we're trying to think about just zipping up a little bit into those tummy muscles. No bracing. And again, if you're not sure, use your hands, yeah? Bring your hands onto your rib cage, holding just around those bony bits of your hips. We want to feel the activation quite low down, but without bracing and gripping through these ribs up here. Okay, so you breathe into the rib cage. Breathe out, release. So if I keep my hands where they are now, what I want to feel as I breathe in, then I'm letting the rib cage expand, and as I breathe out, it will release, let go. Okay, so we don't just grip them the whole time. Let's add on now, next bit. So we're going to add our arms in. So we've done the arms by themselves, we've done the legs by themselves. We're going to put these two movements together. Breathe out, long reach. Breathe in, return. So when we progress through these movements, if any of them just feel too challenging, there'll be an earlier one that you can repeat instead until you feel confident adding in the next variation. In breath, return. Out breath, find that reach and lengthen away. We'll do a few more. So you'll feel that core just zip up as we long reach away and release, let go as your hands come back. Holding this really steady position, either on the mat or on the ball, so you're not twisting and rocking around. Cool. Take the ball out. So we're going to change position. Coming up now onto your knees, last little bit. So we're going to come into tall kneeling. So I want you to imagine a helium balloon attached to the top of your head and it's pulling you up to the ceiling. And then we stack the shoulders over the hips and over the knees. So we're not sort of sinking back here somewhere or arching our ribs forwards, we're straight. With or without weights, weights are going to challenge this movement, but it's up to you. We're going to go breathe out, squeeze the ball, reach the arms up. Breathe in, release the ball, let the arms go. So we've done this movement already. Yeah, we did it lying down on your back with your knees bent. I've just changed the position, challenged the reach of the arms.
So the arms up will feel a bit more challenging, but that should also challenge your ability to use those deep stabilizers. Okay, so back to that lifting movement, quite nice again to visualize the pelvic floor lifting with you. Reach, let it go. Breathe out, breathe in. Nice work. Sometimes if you've got your weights and you want to make it a bit easier, you can hold the weight in the center, or if you've got hand weights like me, just bringing the hands together gives you a little bit more control. Breath out, breath in. Coming onto your hands and your knees. Keep the ball between your knees. Find a neutral spine so you're neither rounded nor arched. Shoulders over the wrists, hips over the knees. Keep that position, squeeze the ball, breath out, reach behind. Breathe in, release, hand to mat. Alternating from left to right. So reaching back, connect your shoulder blade. Think about your posture here. It's a nice open chest position, neck relaxed in the middle. But I still want you just thinking, as your hand leaves the ground, we just connect a little bit deeper through those deeper stabilizers. Pelvic floor, lower tummy, squeeze, release. And for a very last bit, we just change, so we forward reach, breath out, breath in. But same idea, you're holding your posture, you're not changing shape of your back. With the reach of the arm, we breathe out, we zip up our tummy, we breathe in, hand comes back. So quite a nice sequence to work through. You might find that to begin with you have to do the easier variations, and then hopefully progress to doing everything. And then we can progress all of this to double tabletop. Last couple. And that is it. All done.